A three-spine stickleback, a male in conspicuous red and blue breeding colours. He builds a nest of plant material which he glues together. The nest is in a territory which he will defend vigorously against other males. There are behaviour patterns which are consistently associated with breeding sticklebacks. He devotes a lot of time and energy in maintaining the structure of the nest. He also spends time on station over the nest, rapidly moving his pectoral fins back and forth, driving water through the nest in a fanning action. If a female, a large-bellied, egg-filled female, comes to his territory, he makes a characteristic zigzag dance around her. This is an effort to attract her to his nest. If she accepts his advances, she will enter the nest. The male quivers. He makes quick pushes against her flanks and tail. The female assesses nest quality and male vigour. If satisfied, she will then spawn. If she spawns, he then fertilizes the eggs and returns to the business of tending and supervising the nest. All this is obviously happening in a tank, a completely artificial setup. Does it equate to what goes on in the wild? Observations indicate that there is a high degree of similarity between those in the wild and those in tanks. It is possible to capture wild individuals and, with patience, recreate reasonably natural conditions in the laboratory. This is because they are so small and confine themselves to small breeding territories. If you're studying these animals, it is easier to make controlled observations in glass tanks. But how can we make sense of what we observe? We can identify and codify behaviour patterns. This one has been called fanning. But can we say anything about it, or any other of the behaviour patterns that are observed? What causes them? What function do they serve? How did these behaviour patterns evolve, and how did they develop in the individual? As the study of animal behaviour patterns grew up and became formalised, these four questions emerged as central issues in understanding the context of animals' behaviour. They form the basis of a conceptual framework used by ethologists. The framework was originally developed by the ethologist Nico Tinbergen and is frequently known as Tinbergen's Four Questions. He suggested that animal behaviour patterns could be explained under any one of these four headings, causation, function, development, or evolutionary history. Features of the mating behaviour of the three-spined stickleback show how this works. First, causation. What is the immediate cause of a behaviour pattern? Once a female has accepted the robustness of the nest and the vigour of the male, she'll lay her eggs. He then fertilizes the eggs by depositing sperm on them. In some cases, he barges in even before the female has left. But what would have happened if he had had a choice of females to entice to his nest? What feature of a particular female causes him to attempt to attract her rather than any other to his nest? Females vary greatly in size, in length and girth. And those which are gravid, are full of eggs, have enlarged bellies and typically a silvery sheen. The back also becomes darker. Are any of these features the signals that stimulate the male? Very crude models will elicit a response from a male. This set was designed to establish what, in the physical appearance of females, would attract males which were all in full breeding condition. Models of different sizes, fixed at a set distance from each other, are offered to a male. Over a prolonged set of trials, a wide range of pairings are offered, varying in length and apparent gravidity. The male's response, or lack of it, is scored. This type is favoured. It's the largest, it has the most rounded belly, and therefore greatest appearance of gravidity. It has this appearance from the front, side, and rear views, any way the stickleback may perceive it in the water. On average, the least favoured is the smallest, least gravid, on the left, and the most favoured is the largest, most gravid, on the right. What these experiments have set out to reveal are the specific external stimuli that elicit or release the male's sexual behaviour. The models have the shape and some of the coloration characteristic of a gravid female, and appearance is important. Two breeding males, characteristically lean and red, when brought together show a completely different pattern of behaviour, aggression towards each other. The study of causation does not end with identifying the relevant external stimuli, however. To respond aggressively to a red male or sexually to a gravid female, a male must be in breeding condition. The right hormones must be circulating in his blood. Account must be taken of both the external and internal factors that elicit patterns of behaviour in the study of causation. Function. Is there a reason why males prefer larger, more obviously gravid females? Is there a functional explanation for this behaviour pattern? That is, does the preference that the male shows result in greater reproductive success? Gravid females can be anaesthetized. If they are carefully stroked, they can be persuaded to release their eggs. Typically, a gravid female will carry dozens of eggs, but there is a huge range between females. The slightly bemused female is returned to the tank. A comparison of egg number against overall length of female. There's a good correlation. The male's preference for large females is clearly adaptive. It means that he will be more likely to court gravid females and will therefore father a large number of young. Development. Is the behavior of an adult male influenced by his experience early in life? In the days following the fertilization of the eggs, it is the male that tends them as they develop in the nest. But parental care doesn't end with the eggs. On hatching, the fry swim away from the nest and start feeding on microorganisms and small larvae on the pond bottom. Research footage of a male with a brood of fry. When he sees an errant fry, the male catches it in his mouth and spits it back into the nest. The fry are vulnerable to attack by a range of predators, and the adult is protecting them. Here it is again. The fry are seen as small white dots against the black background. But as well as being protected, the fry are learning techniques of evasion from a larger, potentially hostile fish. They don't wait to be drawn into the mouth. They learn to evade it. Do these learned responses influence predator avoidance when the fry become adults? Would it make any difference if their father were removed? The question can be tested. Using a camera pointed at a mirror suspended over a tank, Felicity Huntingford of Glasgow University has designed an experiment to quantify a stickleback's response to an attack by a model predator. In this case, a trout. The model is hidden behind weeds at one end of the tank. At the other end, beneath the mirror, the stickleback under test is introduced. It's a young adult male, not in breeding colours. Its first response is to head for the weeds in the corner. It takes some minutes for the fish to become accustomed to its new surroundings. The camera is sighted to pick up the reflection of the bottom of the tank, so the stickleback's moves are recorded. It moves out into open water. The trout is slowly moved from the cover of the weeds. And then is made to attack. With the stickleback in open water, not having the cover of the weed as an option for its escape, what is its optimal escape strategy against a predator such as a trout, which makes a straight lunging attack? The best thing for it to do is to swim out of its path, to one side or the other. There are two other things that the stickleback can do in this situation. Both of the options are more risky than a sideways move. The stickleback could swim straight at the trout. The only other option is to swim away from the predator, directly down the line of pursuit. This results in being chased by a larger, stronger, already mobile fish intent on eating it. The results from a large number of trials show the difference in escape direction for sticklebacks who were reared normally with a parental male and those who were orphaned as fry. Normally reared adult sticklebacks are far more likely to adopt an appropriate escape response to a predator because of their learnt evasion in response to parental spitting. So learning to escape from the father helps a stickleback in later life to escape from the trout. Evolutionary history. Are any of the behavior patterns a result of natural selection? You have a fair chance of finding the three-spined stickleback right across the temperate zone of the northern hemisphere. It will tolerate quite poor water quality and will live in streams, rivers, lakes and the sea. One place it is found is in lakes on the west coast of Canada, in British Columbia. The population here displays a number of behavior patterns which seem to be explicable only in terms of evolution having taken a different turn in this part of the world. Evolutionary explanations for changes in animals' physical structure can be made from fossils. But as there is no physical record of the behavior of the ancestors of this male, we must make inferences about the evolutionary development of its behavior. There's nothing unusual about the courtship rituals he employs to bring a female to his nest. They are very similar to those behavior patterns seen earlier in British three-spined sticklebacks. The zigzag dance, and the showing of the nest. But the very business of bringing another stickleback to the nest is fraught with problems. In doing this, the male must allow the female free access to his nest, which may well contain eggs previously laid by other females. The eggs are high in protein, potentially valuable to other females that are producing eggs themselves. So the male must show the nest to females for them to spawn eggs which he can fertilize. But he must also prevent the eggs already in the nest from being eaten. When he has fertilized the eggs, he drives the now depleted female away from his territory. He actively discourages her from the nest. He now tends the nest during the period of egg development. But he has a problem. In this population, the females hunt for food in packs, and moreover are cannibalistic. They predate on the eggs of their own species. If they see a nest, they will collectively destroy it, seeking the high-protein food source that will enable them to produce more eggs themselves more quickly. When he sees them, his response is rapid. He attacks individuals in the pack. This is ineffectual as a strategy, however, as there are too many females in the pack. A large pack around his nest triggers a different behavior pattern. He moves along the bottom, employing a behavior pattern used in courtship to show a female his nest. They follow. The effect is diversionary. He is drawing females away from his nest to attack a non-existent nest that he is showing them. This is a behavior pattern particular to this population. Why? It is due to the location and the history of the lake that these fish live in. The ocean forms a central part of the story. The lake is very close to the sea, and in the very recent geological past was a marine inlet. A subsequent fall in sea level left the lake isolated from the sea. In the waters of the lake, the stickleback population was also left isolated. With the physical land barrier, members of the population were and are unable to mix and breed with outside individuals. And the male's diversionary behavior pattern is a feature of the geographically isolated population. These particular behavior patterns could have been inherited from the marine population that inhabited the inlet. They may also have evolved in the geographically isolated population in response to the pack-hunting cannibalistic females. There are similarities between what we can see here and the behavior patterns of present-day marine populations. In this stickleback study, laboratory-based observation is more difficult than working in the lake itself. The pack females range over areas much larger than the territory of a male, so the study of the responses elicited by their incursions has required the painstaking and uncomfortable fieldwork of Dr. Susan Foster. The question of whether any behavior patterns are the result of natural selection is the most difficult of the four. It's not easy to design an experiment to test the idea. However, the behavior patterns of this isolated population of a widely occurring species imply an answer. The three-spine stickleback has been the subject of a great deal of attention by ethologists, and as a result, many of the behavior patterns of the breeding male have been closely observed and codified. It is a convenient species to draw on to illustrate Tinbergen's 4 questions. But Tinbergen's analysis is also applicable to other species, although in those cases, the answers to the questions may not emerge with equal felicity due to lack of extensive study.